He was part of the British punk rock explosion in 1976. He's seen it all and he's done it all. He's a legend in his own right. It's Steve Diggle. How you doing, Steve?
Good, thanks, yes. Yeah.
I hear that the Buzzcocks have some special shows lined up for next year. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yes, it's just it's two shows, one in London, one in Manchester, where we originally started. And we're bringing back what was the classic lineup in the 70s for us. And then Howard DeVoe's going to come on at the end and do the 4 songs we did from Spiral Scratch that we started off with. So it's called Buzzcocks Back to Front. But also we'll be doing the lineup that we've had for the last God knows how many years,
20?
Which is the more important lineup right now to me. But it's just that the few members that were in the past sort of turn up at the show. So it's like, well, seeing they turn up and come to see us, let's bring them on the stage for once. You know, after 36 years. You know, we've not played with Howard, and it's probably 20 odd years since we played with John Marr and Steve Garvey. And, you know, we had a lot of hits with John and Steve on the bass and drums and the back. So it's just a couple of sort of novelty gigs that people have asked us over the years to do.
Are you excited about it?
Well, yeah, you know, well, it will be strange to play with them all again actually on the stage, you know, because we're used to the lineup we've got now. So it will be weird to look round and go, wow, you know, he's back, you know, Howard's back, or John's back.
30
But it's just for 2 shows, and we've been on the road the last 2 years. We go all around the world, so that's the main thing really that we do, you know. I mean, it's not trying to look back at things too much. It's just like, hey, you know, we're going to do 2 shows like that, you know.
And have a good time.
Yeah, you know, well, it's just like they've all got history from different eras of the group. Essentially, me and Pete have been together the 35 and 36 years all the way through. And to me, it's like, it's me and Pete that have stuck to our guns through the whole thing. People have left, and they're all left for different reasons. Now they want to come back and remember what it was like, so that's cool.
30 years ago, I suppose you had your fans, and I suppose they'll be turning up at the gig next year with their children.
Oh, well, they do that now, generally, anyway, you know. But for a lot of those fans at the beginning that remember those kind of lineups, it's a big deal for them, you know. It's like, wow, I can't believe after all these years that you're all going to be on the same stage together, you know. But more importantly, you know, that's that, but we're just in the process of writing a new album. And that is the continuing story of the Buzzcocks. And that's even more important than this sort of line-up business for a few shows, in a sense. I know they're going to be great for the nights, but we just go around the world playing. You know, it takes about 2.5 years for us to get round. You know, when you go to Chile and places and you see them all singing the songs, it's like, that's part of our thing now. Whereas initially we started in Manchester and we thought, if we can get a gig in London in 1976, that would be a big deal. You didn't realise you'd be going around the world forever. America, South America, and
that's awesome.
Europe. So,
you were the first Manchester punk band kind of off the blocks. Did you feel like part of a wider movement? And were you happy about it being called punk rock?
Essentially, we kind of started it with the Sex Pistols because we brought the Sex Pistols to Manchester when they'd done Chelsea Art College and a couple of the places. They wasn't really known. And when we brought them to Manchester, we said, we'll put the posters up now. We booked the Lesser Free Trade Hall and we opened up for them. And all the journalists from London came down to that show thinking they'd be on a freebie and, you know, and they was going to review the Sex Pistols. And it's like, there's a local band, the Buzzcocks. So they was very surprised at that. And that actually put the provinces on the map, and indeed Manchester on the map. Because in the audience, supposed to be people from Joy Division and Tony Wilson and Mick Hucknall. The list's endless, you know. But there was about 150 people there. But if you read the stories, there would have been 5,000 there, you know. I don't know, there's a lot of people that don't tell the truth in Manchester or whatever. But, you know, it's... But that really, for me, was where the punk rock atom split, because the press reviewed the Pistols, and they also reviewed us, and they were shocked by us as well. You know, we were local. You know.
Yeah.
We started 2 days before the Clash as well. You had the Clash and the Pistols and the Damned in London, and we were in Manchester. After that, months and months later, became like a Liverpool scene, a Sheffield scene, things happening in Scotland and stuff. So essentially, we put the provinces on the map as well.
In the early days, you didn't get a record label to start off, and you set up your own label. Was that like a stroke of genius or practicality?
Well, it was a stroke of genius looking back, but at the time it was out of necessity in a way, because it was like, well, we had what we thought was the most uncommercial form of music. So we had this really rough sound, and at the time on the radio, it was all, you know, your local radios and everything was playing this nice West Coast stuff, very sleepy music, kind of like it is now in a sense, you know. The landscape was barren for anything that was alive, really.
You waited a while, didn't you, before signing to your label? What was the reason behind that?
Well, we didn't want to sign to a record label and they start telling you what you have to do, you know. We realised that. The Clash signed to CBS.
They were always squabbling, weren't they?
Troubles with that. And I remember Malcolm McLaren saying, you want to sign a record deal before it's too late? Because I think we took about a year or even longer. We was like, no, we ain't just going to sign any record deal. But we had put a Spiral Scratch out ourselves for, I think it was £500. And that suddenly started selling a lot. I mean, we just made it to sell to local people in Manchester initially, and to hear what we sounded like. And we had this guy, Martin Hannett, in the studio with us, and when the engineer was making it all sounding nice, he'd mess it all up. I mean, he was completely like he was Manchester's Phil Spector, and he completely messed it up. He sounded terrible, you know. To quote Yeats, a terrible beauty was born. But having said that, it made that sound of Spiral Scratch, and that could have only come out on our own label.
Right.
But what it did as well was it pulled the carpet from under the record company's feet. They no longer had control of who they would sign up. So they had to run around the country then trying to sign any punk band. They didn't know what this stuff was about, really. Diamond rings and all those things in a world of life decay seem to mean that much to you, but it doesn't matter anyway. But I can't promise anything today. Not today, my love. Not today, my love. When winter comes, it tends to fall, hanging over your head. When winter comes, it tends to call. Sometimes you wish you were dead, but I can't promise anything today. Not today, my love. Not today, my love. today, my love. No, not today, my love. Not today, my love. No, not today, my love.
What was punk about?
Well, it mainly about attitude, the frustrations and the realism of life, and excitement. That was the initial thing. People were bored, you know. Like in Manchester and everywhere else, really, the musical landscape was barren. It was just boring, you know. Nothing was happening. Even the big rock stars had all getting bloated out in America and Los Angeles. So there was nothing relevant for anyone that was 20 years old, which we were at the time. So, and you had progressive bands who initially were good, but they started to get tiresome, and each song became a movement with the progressive bands, where it'd be like the whole side of an album. And I remember thinking, like, hold on, the Who used to do like 3-minute songs and smash the equipment up and tell people to fuck off. They didn't give a fuck what they thought about them, you know. So that was very important, you know. You've got to have the catalyst of things like that. And there was that art element of the Dadaist thing of rip it all up, throw it in the air and see what happens. So, you see, for every record we bought, I always bought a book as well, you know. So you buy the single, you buy the book.
Yeah.
My brother's an artist, so I know about art as well, or, you know, what you can glean from art. And so there was all that in the pile. It was about the poetry of life and about being youthful and being wise and being cool and being great, you know. It was about that.
You went on to sign to your label, and as we just said, that the Clash are always arguing with CBS. Did you ever argue with your label?
Well, we did have a few skirmishes. There was this wonderful guy called Andrew Lauder that signed us up, and many years later signed the Stone Roses up as well. But he signed us up, and well, he came to shows for weeks on end, and we kept having these meetings after the shows with him, and we thought he's kind of on our wavelength more than the others that are just offering you open checkbooks and wanting to throw money at you, and then wanting to control you and tell you how you should walk and talk and all that stuff. So he said, you know, if you sign with United Artists, you can do what you want. So we was like, well, that sounds good. So we said the first single is going to be called Orgasm Addicts, you know.
Right.
So he said, that's cool. And we had this kind of art thing with like this collage of a woman's body with an iron on her head and stuff like that. When that went to the pressing plant, they said they came out on strike and said, we're not going to press this filth. So the release date of that was about three weeks later than it should have been, while they negotiate with the people on the shop floor to say this is art. I mean, when you consider what the rappers were singing about in the 80s, that's very mild now. But at the time, having a song called Orgasm Addicts on a major label was like, seemed to cause a lot of trouble. I mean, we just thought, you know, it's a bit of poetry in it, you know. People know what an orgasm is.
Everybody knows what an orgasm is.
But when it gets in the, you know, public domain, particularly in 1977, I think it was.
It wasn't spoken about.
Well, it was a bit of a shock, you know. So we got through that one, and then the next song was called What Do I Get? But on the B side, it was called Oh Shit. So they all came out again with that. They said, we're not gonna press this filth in this plant. So we had that, you know, but those were mild things about, you know, the aesthetics really of what art is and that. They wasn't trying to control us. It was just simple people on the shop floor didn't know what we were on about really.
In today's society, we seem to be driven by accountants, which is kind of like draining the music industry. What's your take on it?
Well, absolutely, it's horrendous. In fact, it's like it was back in '76, in a sense. You know, it's dull and boring. People are dead again, really. They're all sleepwalking, you know. If you've ever read James Joyce's Ulysses or anything like that, where he talks about the dead and about the facts of being alive, you know, that has always been very important to me, you know. I was in a car crash when I was 17 and my best mate died, and I thought, now I know the meaning of death, therefore I know the meaning of life. And I think when you're a teenager, that's, you know, very important to know that you're going to die one day. So what you do is so valuable in them early years when you got the strength and, you know, the energy to do them kind of things. So, you know, as Dylan Thomas said, you know, don't walk gently into that dark night. Rage, rage, rage. And that's what we did, you know. And that's how art's done. But now it's all run by accountants. And that's why you don't see anything off the wall or interesting. Years ago, they used to say, like, by your second or third album, you might be selling 1 million if you're lucky, but at least you're developing and creating all these things. All our great history wouldn't have happened if it was now, really, because they go, oh, your single hasn't sold 15 million or your album hasn't. You haven't made enough money, so we can't have you any longer. So I think at the moment it's a massive dilemma where nobody gets a chance if you're like off the wall or, you know, I mean, it's Butlins holiday camp now, talent shows, lowest common denominator, same old drum loop with, you know, some other chick or some guy that I don't really know whether they're conscious of what they're doing up there, you know. They just want to be loved or something, I don't know. But that was never our business, you know. In fact, we want to be hated for saying things that we thought were perhaps a bit more relevant to somebody in the youth and all. You know, you look at Picasso and that, he did the paintings and just went, I don't care what you think, you know. You know, great art is not done by, you know, wanting to be loved and appreciated. It's about working with the art, you know, and making people think.
Whoa, oh, oh. Yeah, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, oh, oh. Gotta be a reason why you're born to die. Better start living before you hit the sky. Can't see the wood cause there ain't no trees, but everything's happening, shooting the breeze. Planet, planet, political. Planet, planet, political star. Planet, planet, political. Planet, planet, political star. Turns in your mind till it's so hard to find. Prophet and the preacher are making you blind. Lord of the land and the land of the law are giving you the feeling you're forever at war. Planet, planet, political. Planet, planet, political star. Planet, planet, political. Planet, planet, political star. Whoa, oh, oh. Yeah, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, oh, oh. So many people in a different dream. I wonder where they come from, where have they been? So many people in a different dream. I wonder where they come from, where have they been? Planet, planet, political. Planet, planet, political star. Planet, planet, political. Planet, planet, political star. Jesus of Muhammad and Muhammad and the Jesus. Jesus of Muhammad and Muhammad and the Jew. Jesus of Muhammad and Muhammad and the Jesus. Jesus of Muhammad and Muhammad and the Jew. Planet, planet, political. Planet, planet, political star. Planet, planet, political. Planet, planet, political star. Political star. Political star. Political star.
So do you feel like you're in touch with the universe kind of thing
Well,
with your music?
with the universe, when I'm either on a bus, in a taxi or a limousine, and with reality, because I go to pubs, you know, it's not Stardust for me, you know. When you saw that Stardust film with David Essex, where he's hiding in a place in Spain going, I can't face going out there, that's not me. I always wanted to make sure I could go to the pub and be real with people. And so people come up and treat you as a real person, you know. If you want to be some untouchable diva or star, then you can't go anywhere.
Right.
So therefore, how do you know anything about the real world, you know? You know, I'm still interested in people paying their gas bills and everything else, you know. That's the reality for me. I mean, I've read all the poetry, you know, I've read all the philosophy. If they come from me from Oxford and Cambridge, I can deal with them all. But my poetry was seeing guys, you know, in the 60s having to take 2 weeks holiday pay to mend the car in the street in bricks. Anybody that's my age would remember cars underneath that. And that was poetry to me. That was things, gave you an insight. You know, not just writing like, you know, Keats about some woe is me business. Yeah. That's the reality. And I like to deal with that sometimes. And punk did to a certain extent, you know. And people can relate to
poetry still very, like, important in the music that you write today?
The poetry of life, as I call it now, yeah. Because getting on a bus is poetry for me. I cannot understand why people get on a bus with these earphone things.
Oh, that's me.
They do not. You miss the ambience of life, the closing of the door, somebody coughing, somebody breathing. You're excluding yourself from, you know, this community and the things we have to live in. I see people shopping with these earphones on. It's like, what's wrong with them? They're all automatons on it. Yeah. What's wrong with living and breathing and checking the ambience of who you are and who people are, you know?
You are a massive star and you ride the bus.
Yeah, I ride the bus because I write better songs when I ride on the bus, you know. My little 214 up and back to Highgate Village. I've got 3 cars, I never use them.
Do you think that's why your music's lasts for like 30 years? Because you've kept yourself real? Kind of.
Well, to a certain extent, if you stick to the art and the music, and I'm Taurus, I'm an earth sign anyway, but like I say, I wanted to do it. When I first got on a bus and we was on top of the pops, people started singing the song all the bloody time. That was a nightmare. They say, look, calm down. You got
they want you to join in.
Well, you know, you're about your business, going to see your mates and have a drink, you know. So when that first started, I thought, well, you're going to have to deal with this. So you've got to find a way of dealing with those things.
How did you find a way of dealing with it?
Well, simply by finding out who you are and finding out when you play on the stage, it wasn't about the fame for me, it was about delivering the goods. Like I said about Picasso, it's like making a painting and going, you know, make of that what you will, and that's it, you know. I don't want the fame thing, I'm not bothered by it, you know. I am famous around the world, you know, if I'm in New York, people will stop me on the street and that. But they stop me for the right reasons, and that's the difference.
They stop you and say thank you for the music, kind of.
Yeah, and they'll talk to you about a lot of things, you know. In them early punk days, we used to have people at hotels talking about relationship problems, all kinds of exchanges we had with people. So you wasn't detached from them. And you can keep some balance there. It keeps the inbuilt gyroscope to me, you know.
There's also a TV show, Never Mind the Buzzcocks, that's kind of like named after you guys. Yeah. What do you feel about that?
Not bothered. I tried to sue them because if it was never mind Sainsbury's would have sued them, or never mind Coca-Cola. Mark Lamar I know very well, and because he was a big fan, I think they wanted the Buzzcocks in the title. I've kind of got used to it now, but you won't see me on there because, like I say, on the one hand they believe in what I do with the music and what we've said. So they don't want to see me selling soap powder on a programme like that. If you look at that programme, it's for comedians on the way up. And people like Right Said Fred, who's nobody's been bothered about since the one hit single. So they're all desperately clamouring for these things, but that's not my business. I could go on there and wipe the floor with those people with all that kind of stuff, but the people that sort of believed in me really want to see me doing that, you know. The guy, you know, I believed in his music. I believed in what he said, the words. I believed in the music. That, you know, And now he's trying to mime to some ABBA song or something. He's treating me like an idiot, you know. So I don't mind watching it with my girlfriend, you know, for a laugh, you know, occasionally if there's nothing else on.
Yeah.
It's a good show, but that's not the business I'm in, you know. Not
What's
the business I'm
left for you
dealing
to achieve
with.
in your career?
Huh?
What do you think's left for you to achieve in your career?
There's still a lot of things yet. Like I say, the main thing is to wake up the dead, all these sleepwalkers that are going around, you know. There's lots of somnambulists everywhere. People are aware of it. And also, music now is treated like supermarket stuff. You know, you get your food, your potatoes, your this and that, and it's like, oh, a bit of music for the background. Whereas when I grew up, and in 1977, when you ran down to buy your Clash single, or your Jam single, or, you know, Pistols singles and stuff, or people buying Buzzcocks, it meant everything to you. There was a million things that was important about it. It was just as important as Shakespeare, really. Say for me, a great song I wrote called Why She's a Girl from a Chain Store, and it only got to number 40 because of the lyrical content, and it said, well, I read this book by Henry Miller, and I only opened it, it was called Black Spring, and it said, forget James Dean, forget Marilyn Monroe, everybody in your street's a star. Pearl John, Junkie Mickey, this and that and the other. And I thought, let's make the Chain Store Girl the vehicle of a song and ask a sociological long question, which is a long title. Why is she a girl from a chain store? Why she got there? And also, I'd read this sort of book about underachievers and overachievers. And there was this book by a guy called Bernstein that talked about Bernstein's language barrier, where for a working class person, the language at home is different from the classroom. So when some working class kids got to the classroom and they said words like ubiquitous, they didn't know what it was. So they were spellbinded with words and they was underachieved. So I thought if I can cram all that into one song.
When you sorted.
Well, yeah, so some kid, maybe age 10, might go, what's Bernstein's language barrier? And then that helped them on the way. That was kind of important to me, you know.
Steve,
That is important.
That's what's important.
Passing that thing on.
It's been great having you here today. We're actually running out of time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
Whenever I'm in doubt about things I do, I listen to the high street waiting sounds in a queue. Go out for my walk, insane in social news. Don't let it get me down, I'm long in the tooth. When I'm out in the open, clattering shoppers around, the neon signs that take your eyes to town. Your thoughts are chosen, your world is advertising now. And extravagance matters to worshippers of the pound. But it's a harmony in my head. It's a harmony in my head. The tortured faces, expressions out aloud, and life's little ironies seem so obvious now. You're casting checks up, place their payments down. Well, there's a line of buses on way to take you out. Well, it's a harmony in my head. It's a harmony in my head. When it's it's a harmony in my head. It's a harmony in your head. Tall glass corporate buildings making you feel that small. Take your library books back if there is a library. Take your feet off the table. No parking. Tax this, tax that, tax this, tax that, tax this, tax that. Well, I don't wanna be a soldier. I don't wanna kill no one. I don't wanna see a soldier. I don't wanna see somebody die. I'm only in your head. I'm only in my head. Oh, whenever I'm in doubt about things I do, I listen to the high street waiting sounds in a queue. Go out for my walk, insane and social news. Don't let it get me down. I'm long in the tooth. 'Cause it's a harmony in my head. It's a harmony in my head. 'Cause it's a harmony in my head. It's a harmony in my head.